My mother invited 42 people to my house before she bothered to ask whether she was allowed inside it. I found out because a wedding planner I had never met called me on a Monday morning and asked where I wanted the ceremony arch positioned. I thought she had the wrong number. She didn't. She had my address, photographs of my property, my younger brother's wedding date, and an email from my mother saying I had generously offered the family lodge for the entire wedding weekend. I had offered nothing. In fact, my brother had not spoken to me in 6 weeks. My mother had not asked how I was since Easter. The previous Christmas, I had driven 4 hours through freezing rain with gifts in my trunk, only to discover they had moved dinner to my brother's fiancée's parents' house, and somehow forgotten to tell me. Yet now my mother was promising strangers bedrooms in the house I had bought with 12 years of my own savings. When I confronted her, she didn't apologize. She said, "Avery, you have 9 bedrooms and no children. What exactly did you think the place was for?" Then, my brother texted, "Please don't ruin this for Hannah over some old family resentment." 3 minutes later, I opened Instagram and found a photograph of my home, posted on my mother's account beneath the words, "So blessed that family always comes through when it matters." That was the moment I understood what I had actually purchased. Not a lodge. Not privacy. A test. And for the first time in 36 years, I was going to let my family fail it. My name is Avery Sullivan. I'm 36 years old, and I live outside Asheville, North Carolina, where I work as a commercial interior designer and project manager for a firm that renovates boutique hotels, restaurants, and historic properties. I spend most of my professional life walking through half-finished buildings with a hard hat on, explaining to wealthy people why moving a wall costs more than they think it should. I love my work. I love old buildings. I love the small clues people leave behind in them, the worn stair tread that tells you which route a family used every morning, pencil marks inside pantry doors, wallpaper hidden beneath newer wallpaper, initials scratched into beams by someone who assumed nobody would ever see them. Buildings remember what people try to cover. Families do too. I grew up 3.5 hours east in Cary, North Carolina, in a family that looked close enough in photographs that strangers often told my mother how lucky she was. My parents, Carol and Dennis Sullivan, lived in the same comfortable brick house for almost 30 years. Dad worked for a regional insurance company. Mom taught elementary school until my younger brother, Mason, was born, then eventually became a part-time real estate assistant and full-time curator of the Sullivan family image. I was 4 years older than Mason, and there are families where that would simply mean one child came first. In ours, it meant I became the rehearsal. Mason was the finished product. I do not remember one dramatic day when I realized my brother mattered more. Favoritism rarely announces itself with a trumpet. It arrives as 1,000 tiny decisions. Mason got the larger bedroom because boys need room. Mason's baseball games were family events. My dance recitals were things Mom attended if the schedule worked. When he got a C in algebra, Mom said he was overwhelmed by sports. When I brought home a B, she asked whether I had become lazy. When Mason wanted a dirt bike at 13, Dad spent weeks researching safe models. When I wanted a camera at 15 because I had started photographing buildings, Mom said hobbies did not need to be expensive. I bought a used Canon with babysitting money. I still own it. One Christmas when I was 10, Mom gave Mason a new gaming system. I got a sweater 2 sizes too large and a journal from the pharmacy near our house. "You like writing things down," she said. I did. So I wrote down the price sticker she had forgotten to peel off. $6.99. It wasn't the money. Children know when money is tight. We were comfortable. What hurt was the difference in effort. Mason's gifts said, "We know what you want." Mine often said, "We remembered you were coming." When relatives visited, Mom told Mason stories. "Tell Aunt Linda about your home run. Show Grandma your science project. Tell Uncle Paul what your coach said." With me, she summarized, "Avery's doing fine. Fine became my family biography. I made honor roll. Fine. I won a state student design competition. Fine. I earned a scholarship to Virginia Tech. Fine. Mason made varsity baseball, and my mother mailed photographs to relatives in 3 states. I used to tell myself she simply understood him better. That explanation hurt less than the truth. My father noticed more than he admitted. Dad was quieter, gentler, and so conflict avoidant that sometimes his kindness became another form of abandonment. If Mom dismissed something I had done, he would find me later. "I'm proud of you, Av." I would ask, "Why didn't you say that when she was there?" He would sigh, "You know how your mother gets." I learned to hate that sentence almost as much as anything Mom actually said. "You know how she gets" meant I was expected to absorb whatever happened because everyone had already decided the person behaving badly was too difficult to challenge. By high school, I became independent in all the ways adults love to praise, without asking why a teenager needed to be. I packed my own lunches, managed my own schedule, found rides, filled out college forms, worked summers. I stopped reminding my parents about school events because disappointment hurt less when I could pretend I never expected them. Mason never had to do that. Mom kept calendars for him, texted coaches, brought forgotten equipment to school, called teachers when grades dipped. She once drove 40 minutes because he left his baseball glove in the garage. The same woman told me at 16, after I called because my car battery died after an evening class, "You're almost an adult, Avery. You need to start solving things yourself." I called roadside assistance. Dad arrived 45 minutes later anyway. Mom was angry with him for encouraging helplessness. That sentence became a family joke for years. Every time I asked for anything, Mason would grin and say, "Careful, Avery. Don't encourage helplessness." I laughed because I loved him. That was the complicated part. Mason was not some evil golden child. When we were young, he adored me. He followed me around the neighborhood. I taught him how to swim. He slept on my floor during thunderstorms. When he was bullied in 7th grade, I confronted the boy before my parents even knew. When I left for college, he cried harder than anyone. But being favored shapes a person if nobody teaches them to notice it. Slowly, Mason learned that my flexibility was normal. If Christmas dates changed for his schedule, I adjusted. If Mom wanted his girlfriend invited to something and there was not enough room, I slept on the couch. If he forgot my birthday, I said it was fine. If I forgot his, it became evidence I was wrapped up in my own life. He did not wake up one day and decide to exploit me. He simply grew comfortable in a family where my inconvenience had always been cheaper than his disappointment. College gave me the first glimpse of life outside that structure. I studied interior architecture, worked part-time in the campus design lab, and discovered that the things my mother called obsessive, my attention to details, my need to plan, my habit of noticing when spaces felt wrong were useful. Professors praised the same qualities that had irritated my family. I made friends who asked me questions and waited for the answers. I spent Thanksgiving sophomore year with my roommate's family because a snowstorm made travel difficult. Her mother put my name on a place card even though she had known me for 3 months. I stared at that stupid little card longer than I should have. Nobody had forgotten I was coming. That alone felt intimate. After graduation, I moved to Charlotte for work, then later Asheville. My career grew slowly. I renovated small restaurants, then hotels, then historic inns. I became good at managing impossible projects with difficult people. I learned budgets, permits, timelines, preservation requirements, contractor politics, and how to smile when a client says, "Can't we just move that staircase?" As if staircases are furniture. My mother never really understood what I did. Or maybe she chose not to. She told people I decorated hotels. If I corrected her, "I manage renovation projects," she would wave her hand. Same difference. Mason, meanwhile, drifted after college. He had gone on a partial baseball scholarship but stopped playing his sophomore year. He changed majors twice, graduated, and eventually became a sales coordinator for a commercial flooring company. It was a decent job. Mason was charming, organized when motivated, and good with clients. He earned well enough. But in Mom's telling, He managed major construction accounts throughout the Southeast. At first, I corrected her. Then I stopped. Reality had never been the point. The important thing was that Mason's life sounded impressive when repeated at church or over brunch. My life only needed to sound stable enough that nobody worried. Avery works with hotels. Avery travels a lot. Avery's always busy. Busy became another useful word, because it explained why I was absent without anyone having to admit I had not been invited. The Christmas pattern became worse after I turned 30. Mason started dating Hannah Brooks, a pediatric dental hygienist from Raleigh, with a big, affectionate family that gathered for everything: birthdays, Sunday dinners, graduations, half-birthdays for children. Hannah herself was kind. I liked her. But once her family entered the picture, my mother became obsessed with proving we were equally close. Suddenly, our holidays had themes: matching pajamas, group photographs, coordinated dinners. Unfortunately, I kept disappearing from them. One Christmas, Mom moved dinner from December 25 to Christmas Eve because Hannah's family wanted the 25th. Nobody told me until December 23, when I texted asking whether I should bring dessert. "Oh, honey," Mom replied. "We assumed you were working." I wasn't. Another year, I drove in Christmas morning and found everyone already opening gifts because Mason and Hannah needed to leave by 11. Mom said, "You're usually late anyway." I had arrived at 8:15. The agreed time was 9. One year, the family Christmas card included Mom, Dad, Mason, Hannah, their dog, and Hannah's parents, who happened to be visiting during the photo. I was not in it. When I asked why, Mom said, "You weren't here." Nobody told me there was a photo. Avery, it was spontaneous. Of course, my absence was always spontaneous. The photograph was framed on their mantel for 2 years. Then came the Christmas that finally broke something in me. I was 35. I had just finished a brutal hotel renovation in Charleston and had more money than usual because of a project bonus. I spent weeks choosing gifts: a professional grill set for Dad, a beautiful cashmere wrap for Mom, a vintage baseball print Mason had once mentioned, a handmade serving board for Hannah. I even bought small gifts for Hannah's parents because they had been kind to me. Mom told me Christmas dinner would be at 5. I drove from Asheville shortly before noon because freezing rain was expected. Traffic crawled. A truck had jackknifed outside Greensboro. I spent almost 5 hours in the car. When I finally turned onto my parents' street, the house was dark. No cars, no Christmas lights, nothing. I called Dad. No answer. Mom, no answer. Mason picked up after the third call. Music and voices filled the background. "Hey, Aver, where is everybody?" Silence. "What do you mean?" "I'm at Mom and Dad's." Longer silence. Then, "Oh." That one syllable told me everything. "Where are you?" "Hannah's parents' house." I closed my eyes. "Why?" "Plans changed." "When?" "Yesterday, I think." Nobody told me. "Mom said she texted you." I checked while he was talking. Nothing. She didn't. Maybe it didn't go through. "Mason." "What? Did you know I was driving in?" He sighed. "I knew you said you were coming." "And you didn't notice I wasn't at Christmas dinner?" Silence. The freezing rain tapped my windshield. Through the window, I could see Mom's dark living room and the outline of that old family mantel. "Av, don't do this." My chest went cold. "Do what?" "Turn this into a whole thing." It was last minute. "I'm sitting outside an empty house with a trunk full of gifts." "Then come here." "Where?" He gave me Hannah's parents' address, 45 minutes away. "Dinner already happened," he added. "But there's dessert." Dessert. 5 hours of driving, and an entire year of being their daughter, had earned me leftover pie. I started laughing. Not because it was funny. "What?" Mason asked. "Nothing. Are you coming?" I looked at the wrapped presents in my back seat. "No." "Come on, Mom will feel terrible." "Will she?" "Avery. Merry Christmas, Mason." I hung up. Mom called 20 minutes later. I was already back on the interstate heading west. Honey, I am so sorry. I could have sworn I texted you. You didn't. It was chaos. Okay. Hannah's mother had already bought the turkey, and they wanted everyone here, and your father said you might have to work anyway. Dad later denied saying that. Okay, why do you keep saying okay like that? I almost told her. Instead, I said, because I understand. Understand what? Nothing. Merry Christmas. I drove home without crying. That scared me more than tears would have. Something had gone quiet inside me. I stopped at a gas station outside Winston-Salem and gave the cashier the expensive cashmere wrap because she had mentioned she was working until midnight. She stared at me like I was insane. Maybe I was. I gave Dad's grill tools to my neighbor. The baseball print stayed in my closet for months. I donated most of the rest. Then I stopped initiating contact. I did not announce a boundary. I did not write a dramatic family message. I simply stopped doing all the invisible work that kept me connected. No Sunday calls unless they called first. No reminding Mason about birthdays. No driving east because Mom suddenly decided everyone should have brunch. No volunteering to adjust. It was amazing how quickly silence revealed the truth. Dad called occasionally. Mom called when she needed something specific. Do you know anyone who can recommend paint colors? Can you look at this kitchen layout? Could you get us a hotel discount in Savannah? Mason texted memes and occasionally asked design questions about projects. Nobody said, "We miss you." Nobody asked why I had become distant. Then Blackwood Lodge came into my life. That was not its original name. The property sat on 14 wooded acres outside Hendersonville, about 40 minutes south of Asheville. Built in the 1920s as a mountain retreat for a textile family, it had later become a small inn, then a religious retreat center, then sat empty for almost 6 years. It had 9 bedrooms, a wide stone terrace, 2 fireplaces big enough to stand inside, a library with dark green built-ins, and views across the Blue Ridge that made even cynical contractors stop talking. It also needed work. A lot of it. The roof leaked in 2 places. Half the plumbing belonged in a museum. The kitchen had been remodeled in 1987 and looked proud of it. Most buyers saw expense. I saw possibility. I had saved aggressively for years. I had invested. I had never bought a house because work kept moving me between projects, and I had always been afraid of tying myself somewhere. After that Christmas, the fear changed. I no longer wanted to remain easy to relocate for everyone else. I wanted a place that felt chosen. The lodge was more than I originally planned to spend, but still within reach because of its condition and location outside the most expensive mountain towns. I bought it in May. Not secretly exactly. I simply did not tell my family. Dad found out in September after one of my projects was featured in a regional design magazine, and the article mentioned I was restoring a historic lodge as my personal residence and studio. He called that evening. "You bought a lodge?" "Apparently. Avery." He sounded genuinely hurt. "Why didn't you tell us?" I looked around the library where 3 walls were still covered in plastic sheeting. I didn't think anyone would care. Silence. "That's not fair." "Maybe not. Your mother is going to lose her mind." "That sounds like her problem." Dad sighed. "How big is it?" "Why? I'm curious." 9 bedrooms. 9? I could hear him smiling. "You bought a hotel. It hasn't been a hotel for 20 years. Still," then he said, softly, "I'm proud of you." That almost undid me. "Thanks, Dad." Mom called 11 minutes later. 9 bedrooms? No hello. "Hi, Mom. Why would one person buy 9 bedrooms?" There it was. "I liked the house." "That is ridiculous." "Then luckily you don't have to pay for it." She ignored that. "Do you know what heating something like that costs?" "Yes. What will you do with all those rooms?" "Whatever I want." She laughed like I was being childish. "Well, at least we finally know where Christmas can be." I went still. "Excuse me?" "Not this year, obviously. You're probably still renovating. But next year, everyone could stay there." "Who is everyone?" "Family." I laughed once. "Interesting." "What?" Nothing. She moved on. 2 days later, Mason called. I saw the article. Holy crap, Av. Thanks. The place looks incredible. It will be. Hannah is obsessed. Tell her thanks. She says the terrace looks like a wedding venue. There was a pause. I knew where it was going before he did. Don't. He laughed. I didn't say anything. You were about to. We're not even engaged yet. Great. But seriously, if we ever… No. You're impossible. Ask me again when something actually exists. We both laughed, and for the moment, it stayed harmless. Mason proposed to Hannah in October. Mom sent me 14 photographs before either of them called. I congratulated them sincerely. I liked Hannah and believed she deserved happiness. They initially planned a September wedding at a vineyard outside Raleigh. I assumed my involvement would be limited. Then, in early March, a severe storm damaged the vineyard's event building. The venue canceled several weddings during reconstruction, including Mason's. I knew none of this until that Monday morning when Melissa Grant, a wedding planner from Raleigh, called my office. Hi Avery, this is Melissa. I'm coordinating Mason Sullivan and Hannah Brooks's October wedding at Blackwood Lodge. I wanted to schedule our first site walkthrough. I thought she had confused me with someone else. I'm sorry, where? Blackwood Lodge. Who gave you this number? Silence. Carol Sullivan. My mother. What exactly did she tell you? That you're the owner and sister of the groom. That part is true. She said the family had decided to move the wedding to the lodge after the vineyard cancellation and that you were generously waiving the venue cost. I stared through the glass wall of my office. One of my coworkers waved. I could not move. Melissa, I never agreed to host a wedding. Her voice changed instantly. Oh, how far has this gone? We have a preliminary floor plan, rental estimates, guest transportation quotes. My stomach dropped. How many guests? 160. I almost laughed. 160 people? Mrs. Sullivan said the property had hosted events historically. Historically, people also smoked on airplanes. Melissa went quiet. I'm really sorry. I was under the impression you had approved everything. Have you taken money from anyone? Only my planning retainer, paid by the Brooks family. That made it worse. Hannah's parents had already spent money based on my mother's lie. Do not schedule anything else. Do not contact vendors using my address. Tell nobody they have access to the property. Absolutely, then she said. You should probably talk to your family. I laughed. That appears to be a recurring theme in my life. I called Mom first. She answered cheerfully. Did Melissa reach you? Yes. Wonderful. She is excellent. Hannah's mother loves her. You told her I donated my house for Mason's wedding. Mom's voice flattened. Donated is a dramatic word. What word would you prefer? Family venue. There is no family venue. There is my home. Avery, please. Did you tell Hannah's parents I agreed? We discussed it. You and I have never discussed the wedding being there. Mason mentioned it last fall. Mason joked about someday getting married there before he was even engaged. So you knew it was something he wanted. I was speechless. That is not consent. You sound like a contract. Because apparently ordinary words don't work. She sighed loudly. Their venue was destroyed. Hannah is devastated. They have already printed save the dates. Your brother has been beside himself. You have an enormous, beautiful property, sitting mostly empty. I genuinely did not think you would be this selfish. Selfish. Of course. The word families use when the person who usually sacrifices stops volunteering. You didn't think I'd mind because you didn't think you needed to ask. We are asking now. No, Mom. You already hired a planner. Nothing is final. You gave strangers my address. A wedding planner is not a stranger. She is to me. Avery, it's one weekend. 160 people. You work on hotels. You know how events work. I almost admired how every fact about my life could become evidence I owed them something. No. Silence. What? The wedding is not happening at my house. Her voice became sharp. Do not do this to Mason. I didn't cancel his venue. But you can save it. That doesn't make it my responsibility. You have 9 bedrooms, she shouted, and no children. What exactly did you think the place was for? There it was, the sentence that changed something permanently, as though a woman living alone had somehow failed to use her own home correctly, as though unused bedrooms automatically belonged to whoever had produced grandchildren or engagement rings. For me, I said. She laughed. 9 bedrooms for one person? Listen to yourself. I am. You know, sometimes I genuinely worry about how isolated you've become. I closed my eyes. Goodbye, Mom. Avery, if you hang up. I hung up. Mason called 14 minutes later. What the hell? No hello. Good afternoon to you too. Mom says you canceled the lodge. I cannot cancel something I never approved. Av, come on. No. Hannah has been crying all morning. I hated hearing that. I'm sorry. Then help. I can help find another venue. We don't need another venue. We have yours. You don't. He exhaled hard. Why are you doing this? Because nobody asked me. Fine. I'm asking. Can we use Blackwood? No. Silence. Then his voice changed, colder. So this is about Christmas. I stared at my desk. What? Mom said you're still mad about last Christmas. Mom says a lot of things. You are. Last Christmas helped me understand a pattern. This is the same pattern. It was a miscommunication. You knew I was driving home and didn't notice I wasn't there. I noticed. That stopped me. What? I noticed you weren't there. And? He went quiet. And I didn't want to make it weird in front of Hannah's parents. I felt my heartbeat in my throat. Thank you. For what? For finally telling me the truth. Avery, you knew your sister was alone at Mom and Dad's house on Christmas, and you decided bringing it up might make dinner weird. That's not what I meant. It's exactly what you meant. He started getting defensive. I called you. After I called you, I invited you over. For dessert. What was I supposed to do, Avery? Stop Christmas? I laughed. No, apparently only my plans are supposed to stop. You always make things so heavy. And you always get to stay light because somebody else carries it. Silence. Please don't ruin this for Hannah over old family resentment. That sentence cut deeper than Mom's. I am not ruining Hannah's wedding. Then let us use the lodge. Those are not the same thing. They are to her, only because you told her she could have it. Mom did. And you let her. He said nothing. Did Hannah know I hadn't agreed? I assumed Mom talked to you. Did you ask her? No. Did you ask me? No. Then you assumed the answer would be yes, because my answer has never mattered much in this family. That is unfair. Maybe. But the answer is still no. I ended the call. 10 minutes later, I opened Instagram. Mom had posted a photograph from the magazine article, showing the lodge lit at dusk. Caption. What a blessing that after an awful venue setback, family has stepped up so Mason and Hannah can still have the mountain wedding of their dreams. Sometimes God closes one door and reminds us where home really is. I stared at the phrase, family has stepped up. 43 comments. Congratulations. How beautiful. Avery is so generous. What an amazing sister. Can't wait to see photos. One person wrote, Carol, you raised wonderful children. Mom replied with 3 hearts. I took a screenshot. Then I called Melissa, the planner. Please contact Hannah directly and tell her there has been a misunderstanding. Be kind. None of this is her fault. Are you sure you don't want to tell her yourself? I don't have her number. Another small realization. My future sister-in-law had been with Mason 3 years, and we had never exchanged numbers. We were not a close family pretending to be complicated. We were a distant family pretending to be close. Hannah called me that evening. Her voice was embarrassed before she said hello. Avery, I am so sorry. You have nothing to apologize for. I really thought you offered. I know. Your mom told my parents you suggested it after the vineyard called. Of course she had upgraded the lie. I didn't even know the vineyard was damaged until today. Hannah went silent. Mason said you knew. There it was. No. Okay. Her voice sounded different now. That's good to know. I did not want to destroy her relationship. I also refused to protect it with another lie. I'm sorry this happened. Can I ask something? Sure. Would you consider it if we paid you? I closed my eyes. It was a fair question. No. Because of your family? Partly. And partly? I looked around my own living room. Renovation plans covered one table. My cat, Juniper, slept beside the fireplace. Because this is my home. I bought it because I wanted one place in my life that didn't automatically become available whenever somebody else wanted something. Hannah was silent for several seconds. I understand, then quietly. I wish your family had explained it that way. They don't understand it that way. Over the next 3 weeks, my mother turned my no into a family referendum. Aunt Linda called. It's just one weekend. Cousin Rachel texted. I know you and Carol have issues, but don't punish Mason. Dad called with the gentlest pressure of all. Could you at least think about it? Dad, I already did. Your mother says the Brooks family is embarrassed. Mom should apologize to them. She's trying to fix things. By convincing me to make the lie true? Silence. I don't know what to do here, Av. You could tell her she was wrong. You know how she gets. I almost smiled. There it was again, waiting for me after 30 years. Dad, I'm going to say something and I need you to hear it. Okay, every time you tell me you know how she gets, what you are really saying is that I should accept more because she handles less. He went silent. I never thought about it like that. I have. I'm sorry. Then stop helping her pressure me. He did. That mattered. Mom did not. She began posting vague things online about people who forget who supported them before they were successful. One said, big houses can still hold very small hearts. I laughed at that one. A coworker suggested I frame it. I stopped answering family calls unless I wanted to. Then, strangely, the drama became quieter. Melissa found them another venue, an estate outside Charlotte, with an October cancellation. It cost more than the vineyard. Hannah's parents covered the difference. The wedding was saved. I expected the pressure to end. It didn't, because by then, the lodge had become symbolic. My no had embarrassed Mom in front of Hannah's family. That was the offense she could not forgive. In late October, an invitation arrived. Mason and Hannah's wedding. Elegant cream cardstock. My name was handwritten. I stared at it for a long time. Then I noticed something. There was no information about rehearsal dinner participation or family photos. I texted Mason. Do you need me there Friday? He responded. No, just wedding day is easiest. Easiest. Family photos? Mom has a list. Am I on it? 3 dots. Gone. 3 dots again. There will be lots of photos. That wasn't my question. He did not reply for 20 minutes. Mom thinks because things have been tense, maybe we keep formal family photos simple. I laughed out loud in my kitchen. There it was. My house had been good enough to host the wedding. I was too complicated to stand in the photograph. Got it, I wrote. Mason responded immediately. Please don't make this a thing. I did not. I declined the invitation. Hannah called me. I'm not asking you to change your mind, she said. I just need to know why. I told her. She was silent. Then, I didn't know about the photos. I assumed. I want you there. Thank you. I'll fix the list. Hannah, that's not your job. It's my wedding. Exactly. And I don't want the week before your wedding becoming another fight about whether your fiancé's sister is allowed in a photograph. You're his sister. Tell him that. I did not attend. I sent them a generous gift and a sincere card. Mom posted 37 wedding photographs. Caption. The whole family together for the happiest day. I was not there. For once, the sentence did not hurt the way she probably expected. It clarified something. I had spent years thinking exclusion meant I was failing to belong. Now I understood I had simply stopped auditioning. Then Thanksgiving approached. Dad called the first week of November. We're hosting this year. Okay. Hannah's parents are coming. Okay. Mason wants you there. I almost said no automatically. Dad continued. I want you there. That made me pause. Does Mom? Silence. She knows you're invited. I laughed. That is not the same answer. No, Dad. I'm trying. I believed him. All right, I'll come. I told myself I would stay one night. No gifts, no performance, no expectation. I drove east Thanksgiving morning. The house looked the same. Mom opened the door. For a second, neither of us moved. Hi, I said. Hello, Avery. No hug. Progress, in a strange way. Dad hugged me hard. Hannah greeted me warmly. Mason gave me a quick, awkward hug. Her parents, Tom and Susan Brooks, were friendly. I had met them only twice. Susan immediately said, Avery, I've wanted to apologize about the lodge mess for months. Mom stiffened. Susan, please. Susan ignored her. We truly thought you had offered. I know. Melissa explained everything. Mom rearranged napkins violently. Everything worked out. It did, I said. Mason appeared from the kitchen. Can we have one normal holiday? I looked at him. I've been here 7 minutes. Hannah bit her lip, trying not to smile. Dinner started at 4. 14 people around the table. Mom had created a seating chart. I was placed beside Dad, which surprised me. For the first hour, things were almost pleasant. Football, Hannah's work, my cousin's new baby. Dad asked about the lodge restoration. Susan asked thoughtful questions. Mom stayed quiet whenever my work came up, which was better than minimizing it. Then dessert arrived. Dad opened a bottle of champagne left from the wedding. We should toast the newlyweds properly now that things have calmed down. Everyone raised glasses. Mom stood. My stomach tightened automatically. She smiled at Mason and Hannah. This year has taught all of us a lot about family. Of course it had. Plans changed. Feelings were hurt. There were misunderstandings. Her eyes flicked toward me. But in the end, love prevailed. I almost put my glass down, she continued. And I hope next year we can finally stop letting pride keep us apart. Everyone grew quieter. Avery has this beautiful mountain property that she has worked very hard for. I stared at her. Dad whispered, Carol. She ignored him. And I think it would be wonderful if next Thanksgiving, instead of everyone scattering, we gathered there as a family. Start fresh. There it was. Again. Susan looked uncomfortable. Hannah closed her eyes. Mason stared at his plate. Mom raised her glass toward me. A new tradition. I did not move. No, I said. The word was quiet. Mom's smile remained frozen. Excuse me? No. Avery, I'm not asking about a wedding. I know. It's Thanksgiving. I know. For family. Still no. Several people shifted. Mom lowered her glass. Why are you determined to punish everyone? Dad said. Carol, stop. No, Dennis. I am tired of tiptoeing around her. She looked at me. We all have to reorganize everything because Avery has feelings. My heartbeat slowed. That old dangerous calm. What exactly has been reorganized for me? This entire year, she said. Mason had to find another wedding venue because you refused to help. Hannah spoke. Carol, we found another venue because Blackwood was never ours. Mom snapped. I am talking to my daughter. Hannah went quiet. I looked at Mason. He did too. Mom continued. We welcomed you tonight despite everything. I almost laughed. Welcomed me? Yes. To my parents' Thanksgiving? Do you hear yourself? Everything becomes an accusation. I haven't accused you of anything. You don't have to. You sit there with that expression. I genuinely smiled then. Which expression? Like you're above all this. No, Mom. I'm tired of all this. Her eyes filled with tears. I gave everything to my children. Mason looked down. Everything, she repeated. Every game, every school event, every holiday. And somehow I'm the villain because one Christmas plan changed. I stared at her. Do you really believe this is about one Christmas? What else could it possibly be? That question hit me almost harder than the neglect itself. She truly did not understand. or she had built a version so comfortable that understanding would cost too much. Do you want me to answer honestly? Please do. Okay. I folded my napkin beside my plate. When I was 10, you spent weeks finding Mason the exact game system he wanted and bought me a pharmacy journal because you forgot my gift until Christmas Eve. Her mouth opened. We were watching money. No, the system cost $400. Silence. When I was 13, my science competition happened during Mason's baseball tournament. Dad promised to come with me. You told him Mason needed both parents there. I went with my teacher. Mom glanced at Dad. When I graduated college on a full scholarship, you left before dinner because Mason had an intramural baseball game the next morning. Mason's head snapped up. I didn't know that. I know. I kept going. When I graduated nursing, I stopped and laughed softly. Sorry, design school. See? I've spent so long telling myself it didn't matter, even I try to move through it too quickly. Nobody laughed. When I graduated, we had dinner at a chain restaurant because you said we should keep it simple. Mason's graduation had 60 people and catering. Mom whispered. He was the baby. Exactly. Silence. Every holiday changes around Mason. Every family photo centers Mason. Every time I achieve something, you describe me as busy or fine, or doing hotel decorating. Every time he does something normal, you turn it into a family headline. Mason closed his eyes. And last Christmas, you moved Christmas 45 minutes away, and nobody told me. I drove 5 hours through freezing rain to an empty house. Susan whispered, "Oh my God," Mom said. "I told you that was an accident." Maybe forgetting to text me was. Nobody noticing I wasn't. There wasn't. I looked at Mason. His eyes were wet. He noticed. Mom turned toward him. "What?" Mason stared at the table. I knew she wasn't there. "Mason," she called me. He rubbed his forehead. I knew she'd driven in. I didn't say anything because everyone was having a good time, and I didn't want to create drama. Susan looked at him with open disappointment. Hannah's face tightened. Mom said quickly, "See, he tried to invite you over." "For dessert," I said. After everyone had eaten, opened gifts, and taken pictures. "What do you want from us?" Mom shouted. "A public flogging? No. An apology forever? No. Then what?" I was surprised by how easy the answer came. "I want you to stop expecting access to me as proof that I forgave you." The room went still. Mom stared. "That is what this lodge thing is really about," I continued. "You keep trying to turn my house into evidence that we're a close family. The wedding, Thanksgiving, Christmas next year. You don't want my home. You want the picture." Her face went red. "That is ridiculous." "Is it? You posted my lodge before you asked me. You told people I offered it. You told Hannah's parents I wanted the wedding there. Then when I said no, I became selfish. You could have helped. I have helped this family my entire life." "By doing what?" There it was. A question so cruel in its casualness that even Mom seemed to realize she had gone too far. Dad whispered, "Carol." But I answered, "By making myself easy." My voice cracked for the first time. "By changing plans, by driving farther, by taking the couch, by pretending gifts didn't matter, by pretending pictures didn't matter, by pretending it didn't hurt when Mason was celebrated and I was summarized." Mason started crying silently. "By never asking you to choose me because I already knew what happened when there was a choice." Mom's face collapsed. "That is not fair." "Maybe it isn't, but it is how I experienced this family." Dad covered his mouth. I continued. "And then I bought one thing entirely for myself. One place. One place no one gave me. No one helped pay for. No one even knew about. And the first thing you did when you found out was ask how many people could sleep there." Silence. "You never asked which room I loved most. You never asked what I wanted to do with the library. You never asked if I was happy there. You asked what all those bedrooms were for." Susan looked down. Hannah was openly crying now. Mason whispered, "Av." I looked at him. "And you asked for the wedding before you asked to visit me." He wiped his face. I'm sorry. I know you are now. No, I mean, he struggled. I think I thought your stuff was family stuff because your time always was. That sentence hit me, he continued. You always came. Always fixed things. Always adjusted. When Mom said we could use Blackwood, I didn't think, she's lying. I thought, Avery will eventually say yes because Avery always says yes. I nodded. Exactly. Hannah looked at him. That's not better. I know. Mom shook her head. So now everybody is going to make me the monster. Dad finally spoke. No one said monster. She turned on him. You've been sitting there letting her attack me. Dad's voice remained quiet. Because she's telling the truth. Mom stared at him as though he had betrayed her. Dennis. I spent years telling Avery to understand you because I was afraid of upsetting you. His hands shook, and I am ashamed of that. Tears filled his eyes. Every time I said you know how your mother gets, I was telling her your behavior mattered more than her feelings. Mom whispered. After everything I did for this family, Dad shook his head. That sentence is exactly the problem. Nobody moved. Something in Mom's face hardened. She looked at me. Fine. You want your precious house all to yourself? Keep it. I hope those empty rooms keep you company. There it was. The line designed to hurt. Years earlier, it would have. It still did, just differently. I stood. They do. Mom blinked. What? The rooms aren't empty to me. I pushed my chair in. One is my studio. One is a guest room for my friend Marisol when she visits from Atlanta. One has become a reading room. One still needs plaster repairs. I'm turning the smallest bedroom into a sewing room, even though I don't know how to sew yet. Sometimes my coworkers stay. Sometimes nobody does. I picked up my coat. And the quiet is not loneliness. I looked directly at her. It is what peace sounds like when nobody is making you earn your chair at the table. Mom flinched. Mason stood. Avery, please don't leave. I'm not storming out. It feels like it. That's because I normally stay after I want to leave. Hannah stood too. Can I call you later? Of course. Mom laughed bitterly. Wonderful. Everyone go comfort Avery. I looked at her one final time. I'm not asking anyone to follow me. Then I walked out. Dad came onto the porch behind me before I reached my car. Av. I stopped. He hugged me. Hard. I'm sorry. I know. No. I'm sorry I made you be the reasonable one your whole life. My throat tightened. Thank you. Can I visit the lodge sometime? That question meant more than he understood. Can I visit? Not when are we coming. Not what room is mine. Yes. When? I smiled. I'll invite you. Dad laughed through tears. Fair enough. I drove back to Asheville the next morning. I stayed in a hotel halfway because I was too tired to finish the drive safely. Old Avery would have forced herself home because needing rest felt weak. New Avery ordered soup, watched terrible television, and slept 10 hours. My phone exploded while I slept. Mom. I cannot believe you embarrassed me in front of the Brooks family. Mom. Your father barely spoke to me after you left. Mom. Hannah thinks we are dysfunctional now. Mom. I hope you are satisfied. Aunt Linda. Your mother is devastated. Cousin Rachel. I heard Thanksgiving was rough. You okay? Mason. I'm sorry. Then 30 minutes later. I'm really sorry. Then. There are things I need to say, but I don't think text is right. Hannah. None of this is your fault. Please know that. Dad. Drive safe. Love you. I answered Dad. I answered Hannah. I told Mason we could talk when I was ready. I did not answer Mom. That was the beginning of the real boundary. Not a dramatic cutoff announced in a paragraph nobody wanted to read. I simply stopped entering conversations where the only available role was guilty daughter. Mom sent messages for 2 weeks. Some angry. Some sad. Some almost apologetic until the apology turned into another accusation. I'm sorry you felt overlooked, but you never made family easy. I'm sorry Christmas hurt you, but adults need to be flexible. I'm sorry about the wedding misunderstanding, but your brother really needed you. Every apology contained a door leading back to my responsibility. I stopped walking through it. Mason called in December. Can we talk? Okay. His voice sounded different, less defensive. Hannah and I started counseling. Why? Because apparently getting married after lying to her about my job and my sister is frowned upon. I smiled, despite myself. How dare she? He laughed, then went quiet. I've been thinking about Christmas last year. Okay. I knew. You told me. No, I mean I knew before you called. My stomach tightened. How? Mom realized around 4 that she never texted you. I closed my eyes. Dinner was at 5. Yeah. And nobody called. Dad said we should. What happened? Mom said if we called, you'd be upset and it would ruin the mood. There are sentences so painful they almost become clean. And you agreed. I said we could tell you after dinner. I did not speak, Mason cried. I'm sorry. Why are you telling me this now? Because therapy is making me answer questions I don't like. Good. The counselor asked what I was protecting. I said Christmas. Then she asked, from what? And I realized the answer was your feelings. I stared out the lodge window, at snow gathering on the terrace. We protected dinner from the person we excluded, instead of protecting the person we excluded from dinner. His voice cracked. I'm sorry. I believed him. That did not mean we were suddenly fine. Thank you. Do you hate me? No. Are we okay? No. He inhaled sharply. But maybe eventually? Maybe. What do I do? Stop asking me to make you feel better about what happened. Silence. Okay. And stop letting Mom rewrite things when the rewrite benefits you. I already started. How did that go? He laughed sadly. She hung up on me. Congratulations. That Christmas, I stayed at Blackwood, alone by choice for Christmas Eve. Not because nobody wanted me. I had invitations from coworkers, my friend Marisol, and even Hannah's parents, which amused me. But I wanted the first night to belong to me. I cooked steak because I don't actually like turkey. I lit both fireplaces. I opened a bottle of wine I had been saving. I played records too loudly in the library. At 9, someone knocked. I almost ignored it. It was Dad, standing on the porch with a duffel bag and a bakery box. You invited yourself? I asked. He held up both hands. I called earlier. You didn't answer. That is technically not an invitation. I can leave. He meant it. That was the difference. What's in the box? Chocolate pie. Come in. Dad stayed one night. We drank wine by the fire. He asked me about the house. Really asked. Which room had been hardest to renovate? Why I chose the green library walls. What the original floors were made from. Which view I liked best. Not once did he ask where everyone would sleep at Thanksgiving. Before bed, he said, I understand why you bought this. I looked at him. Why? It doesn't feel empty. My eyes filled. No. It feels like you. That was the best gift he had given me in years. Mom spent Christmas with Mason and Hannah. I knew, because social media exists, even when you stop looking for it. I did not check her account. A cousin sent me a photo by accident in a group chat. Mom, Mason, Hannah, Hannah's parents. Caption: Family healing together. I stared at it for 3 seconds and closed the message. That was growth. I no longer searched photographs for evidence that I existed. Over the next year, my relationship with Mason changed slowly. He and Hannah postponed their plans to start a family because counseling had revealed more problems than either expected. One involved his habit of letting Mom make plans and telling Hannah afterward. Another involved money. Another involved his need to look more successful than he felt. Eventually, he drove to Asheville alone. He did not assume he was staying. He booked a hotel. When I told him that was ridiculous and offered a room, he said, I'm practicing asking. Annoying, isn't it? Extremely. We sat on the terrace after dinner. Mom always told me you didn't want kids, he said. I don't know if I do. She said you bought this place because you were trying to prove you didn't need a family. I laughed. Of course she did. Why did you buy it? I looked across the mountains. Because I spent most of my life feeling like I could be removed from rooms without anyone noticing. He swallowed. And this place? I choose who comes in, he cried. Quietly. I'm sorry I made you feel removable. You didn't do it alone. Still. He nodded toward the house. Can I tell you something awful? Please. When Mom first mentioned the wedding here, my first thought wasn't whether you'd say yes. He rubbed his face. It was how incredible the pictures would look. That honesty hurt. It also helped. Thank you for telling me. Hannah says I spent years treating your life like supporting scenery for mine. Hannah is smart. She's annoyingly smart. They stayed together. They became better. Mom did not. Or not enough. That is also part of real family stories. Sometimes the protagonist sets a boundary, and everyone suddenly becomes emotionally healthy because the story needs a warm ending. Life does not work that way. Mom tried therapy twice and quit because she said the therapist was determined to blame mothers. She apologized occasionally, but still believed my response was too severe. When Dad began visiting me without her, she accused me of dividing the marriage. When Mason stopped letting her exaggerate his job, she said Hannah had changed him. When Hannah refused to give Mom a key to their new house, Mom blamed me for infecting everyone with boundary nonsense. Eventually, I stopped speaking to her for almost 9 months. That was not punishment. It was relief. People ask whether cutting contact feels empowering. Sometimes. Mostly it feels sad. I missed the mother I wanted. I missed the possibility that one day she might call and ask about me without needing anything. I missed holidays that never really existed. Grief is strange when the person is alive. There is nowhere to send flowers. During those 9 months, Blackwood changed. The repairs finished. I turned 2 upstairs rooms into guest rooms. One became my studio. I converted the old dining room used by the retreat center into a long communal space. Friends came. Coworkers came. Marisol spent a week there after her divorce and cried into my expensive sofa while eating cereal. Dad came every few months. Mason and Hannah stayed twice. Neighbors came for summer dinners. I started hosting a small holiday supper every December for people from work who could not travel or did not want to. Nurses, designers, a contractor whose wife had died, a young intern whose parents lived overseas. Nobody was required to call it family. That was why it felt like family. The second Christmas after I bought Blackwood, Mom contacted me by letter instead of text. 4 handwritten pages. The first 2 were exactly what I expected: her childhood, her sacrifices, her mother favoring her own sister. How hard parenting had been. I almost stopped reading. Then came a sentence I had never seen from her before. I think I repeated something I hated, because being the person who chose was less frightening than being the person who might not be chosen. I read it again. She wrote about Mason being easy to praise. He liked sports, she understood. He stayed nearby. He needed her. I had always seemed capable, and instead of seeing capability as a strength, she had used it as permission to give me less. I told myself you did not need what he needed, she wrote. I never asked whether you wanted it anyway. That sentence made me cry. Then came the part that mattered most. I still think some things you said were unfair. I am not going to pretend I remember every event the way you do. But I no longer think your memory has to match mine for your hurt to be real. That was not the perfect apology. It was better. It was honest. At the end, she wrote, I will not ask to come to Blackwood. If you ever want me there, you can invite me. I waited 3 weeks. Then I called. Hi, Mom, she cried immediately. Hi. I got your letter. Okay. Thank you. Do you hate me? No. Do you forgive me? I closed my eyes. Some things, yes. Some things I'm still working on. Silence. That's fair. I almost laughed because I had never heard my mother say those words. Would you like to have lunch sometime? Yes. In Asheville. She hesitated. Okay. At a restaurant. Another pause. Okay. No lodge. Not yet. We had lunch 3 weeks later. She did not ask to see the house. That mattered. She asked about my work. She interrupted twice and apologized once. Progress. We began again cautiously. Not from where we left off. From somewhere new. Months later, I invited her and Dad to Blackwood for a weekend. Mom stood in the front hall looking around. It's beautiful. Thank you. She walked toward the library. Is this your favorite room? I stared. Dad told you. He said you love it. She touched one of the green shelves. I would have made these white. I laughed. I know. She laughed too. Then she said, I'm glad you didn't. That weekend was not magical. We had one argument because she tried to reorganize my kitchen. I told her to stop. She did. Later she asked which bedroom was hers. I said, the blue one while you're visiting. She nodded. Not our room. Not the room we'll always use. The blue one while visiting. Language matters. The deepest change came the following Thanksgiving. Mason and Hannah hosted at their house. Mom asked me ahead of time whether I was coming. Not, you'll be there. Would you like to come? I said yes. When I arrived, there was a place card at the table. Avery. Nothing dramatic. Cardstock with a little painted leaf. I picked it up and stared at it. Hannah noticed. Everything okay? Yeah. I smiled. I just like knowing somebody expected me. She squeezed my arm. At dinner, Mom stood to make a toast. My entire nervous system prepared for disaster. She lifted her glass. I used to think a close family meant everyone doing things the same way, showing up to the same house, taking the same pictures, keeping the same traditions. She looked at me briefly. I was wrong. Mason stared at her. Dad smiled. I think family is people who know they can say no and still be invited next time. My eyes filled. She continued. So I am grateful everyone who wanted to be here is here. Not everyone. Everyone who wanted to be here. That small difference felt enormous. Later, Mason pulled me aside. Did Mom just give a boundary toast? I think she did. We should check her temperature. Absolutely. We laughed. Blackwood Lodge never became the Sullivan family estate. That was important. My parents visit because I invite them. Mason and Hannah visit because I invite them. Sometimes I say no. Sometimes I host Christmas. Sometimes I don't. One year, I spent Christmas in Montreal with Marisol and left the lodge empty. Mom said, that enormous house sitting empty on Christmas feels criminal. Then she caught herself. But it is your enormous empty house. Correct. Have fun in Canada. That may be the closest thing to sainthood either of us ever achieves. Mason and Hannah eventually had a daughter, Lily. The first time they brought her to Blackwood, Mom followed them. I watched her walk into the nursery I had set up in one guest room for visiting friends with children. This would be perfect for Lily whenever she comes, Mom said. I raised an eyebrow. She stopped. Whenever you invite her to come. I smiled. Exactly. Lily slept there that night. At 2 a.m, she woke screaming, and somehow I ended up carrying her down the hall while Mason warmed a bottle. I stood in the library, rocking my niece beneath the old beams, and thought about Mom's original question. 9 bedrooms and no children. What exactly did you think the place was for? Now I knew the answer better than ever. It was for whatever life I chose to build inside it, sometimes quiet, sometimes friends. Sometimes a crying baby who belonged to my brother. Sometimes an empty hallway and snow against the windows. The point was never how many rooms I could fill. The point was that nobody else got to decide what emptiness meant. There is one photograph from last Christmas that I keep framed in my office. Not because it is perfect, it is terrible. Dad's eyes are closed. Hannah is laughing at something outside the frame. Mason is holding Lily upside down because she refused to cooperate. Mom is half turned toward me saying something. I am in the center not because anyone positioned me there, but because I happened to be carrying the camera remote and ran into the nearest open space before the timer went off. Nobody was cropped out. Nobody posted a caption about perfect family. Mom shared it online with 4 words. Grateful they came. They. Not my whole world. Not all my babies. Not family is everything. Grateful they came. Choice. That is what changed. I spent most of my life thinking belonging meant being wanted automatically. Now I think belonging is healthier when it remains a choice. People choose to come, people choose to stay, people are allowed to leave. Nobody's chair disappears because they said no last time. Nobody's home becomes communal property because relatives can imagine a use for it. Nobody's sacrifice becomes proof of love. That was the real lesson Blackwood gave me. Not that wealth creates power. Not that distance fixes family. Not even that boundaries always make people respect you. Sometimes boundaries make people furious. Sometimes they expose relationships that only worked because one person kept giving more. Sometimes the people on the other side never change. But the boundary still works, because its job is not to change them. Its job is to protect you. My mother did not finally hear me, because I found the perfect argument. My brother did not understand because I punished him. Things changed because I stopped making my cooperation the price of keeping the family calm. I said no to the wedding. I left Thanksgiving when I was done. I stopped answering messages designed to make me guilty. I let people experience disappointment without immediately rescuing them from it. And somewhere in that process, I stopped treating myself like the extra chair in my own life. So let me ask you something, because I know families see this differently. If your family repeatedly forgot you, favored your sibling, excluded you from important moments, and then suddenly treated the home you bought yourself as family property when they needed a wedding venue, would you have let them use it to keep the peace? Or would you have said no even if everyone called you selfish?